Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Zoho Zone podcast, where we talk with Zoho partners about their Zoho implementation. I'm Andrew Simpson with Ether Automation, and today on the podcast, I have Danielle Major from KI Consultants, or is it Key Consultants?
It's Key Consultants. Key
Consultant.
Key, yeah.
Got it. Danielle, thank you for coming on the show.
It's good to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Pretty excited today.
Yes. Now, before we start, I should let everyone, our listeners know that you're going to be speaking at Zoho Inspire this year, right? So if they're a Zoho partner and they want to learn how to have much bigger user licenses, they should go to Zoho Inspire and listen to your talk. I got a sneak preview on a previous call, so I just want to let everyone know that they can get more content from you by going to Inspire.
It is at the Austin instance, though. We're having 3 different instances in the U.S., so I'm speaking at the Austin instance.
Cool. So they got to go to Austin to see your talk.
Yep.
Excellent. So Danielle, can you tell me about yourself and Key Consultants?
Company is Key Consultants. We have been working with CRM and integration systems for almost 25 years now. So we cut our teeth on, in gold mine. We work with Zoho CRM now, but we've been certified in dynamic CRM. We've had experience with Salesforce and stuff. And then we also do, some of our developers do some AS400 work and other development instances. So our vendor of choice at the moment is Zoho because it has an application for every part of your business. We used to also be, QuickBooks Pro Advisors, but Zoho has Zoho Books now, and, various other Office 365 cloud, Silver Cloud partners, but Zoho has its own mail system. So it's all the applications you need under one roof. And so we try to make sure that we can get that implemented for our clients in the best possible way.
Nice. Okay, cool. What is, you've done a lot of Zoho implementations. You've been in business for a while. What is your favorite Zoho implementation that you've done?
My favorite one, I have so many to choose from. If I have to pick one favorite, though, it would have to be one from the islands. So I have a client that is incorporated on multiple islands in the Bahamas. So they're, Barbados, St. Lucia, Jamaica, and various others. So they have corporations on each of those islands. They have different currencies, different VATs for all of them. And they wanted to implement Zoho One for their business and get some of the get a bunch of process baked into that. So we got pretty creative with the applications that we were going to use and try to make it simple for them. And they're pretty happy with some of the stuff that we ended up working out for them. They had some unique scenarios with various things like the currencies. Each island has a different currency as well as a different VAT and things like that. So getting that all baked in. Fortunately, Zoho was pretty easy to work around that because they are international and they have a lot of that already baked in. So I was pretty happy with that.
Okay. I'm glad you said the actual, Barbados, Jamaica. When you say the islands, I have the other islands where I am, and I'm like, which islands here? So that's super helpful. So they're dealing in multiple jurisdictions, multiple currencies. Did they have any processes when they reached out to you? Like, how did you identify what needed to be implemented?
The owner of the company, fortunately, he was in a position where he thought there's got to be a better, easier way to do this. And they had painted themselves into a corner with using a custom-built, homegrown access database. And so, using that remotely, going to the different islands, you can't really scale that way. And I know there's a lot of Microsoft partners that'll argue with me, but that's okay. I don't need to argue about that. The client was in that boat. So the client is the one that made that decision. I'm not calling anybody's baby ugly. So he decided, he needed to be able to scale, get to the other islands. They have the access database, and they actually use something else called Smart Sheets. And I gotta say, I looked at that was the first time I'd seen smart sheets. I thought they were talking about general Excel. And I'm like, I kind of like the smart sheet stuff. It's pretty nifty. But they had all of these different disparate softwares trying to talk to each other and just manual information. They would put the same information, 3 or 4 different systems. And they said, there's just got to be a better way. So they reached out to several different partners and different applications, trying to find a good fit. And finally landed on me, where I had a couple of really nice calls with them saying, no, I'm pretty sure we can help you with that and simplify that, scale that for you, get you working out of one system. And he liked the sound of that. So.
I got it. It's interesting about, Access databases and Smartsheet, right? I've seen a lot of companies that built, hey, all of our data, all of our quotes, invoices, product information, it's on an Access database. Oh, database. So it must be on a server. No. It's on a local machine. You got to double click and open it up. It's a glorified spreadsheet, right?
Yes.
So I always find that interesting. But Smartsheet was really interesting because it's an interesting program, right? And I've seen businesses doing $3 million in revenue a year, and they was like, oh, we have this massive Smartsheet, but eventually that sheet slows down and becomes a 3-minute load time for any change, and you just need some to go to something more scalable.
Yeah, and their techs can't access it from the field. So, they tried, and that's kind of where the wheels fell off. And being in the islands, obviously, the internet's not great either. So, trying to do remote desktop or trying to do different things like that, it just doesn't work as well. You're passing X windows over the line, and it's just not as quick and snappy as you want it to be. So, having a cloud service such as Zoho or Salesforce, right? They looked at Salesforce as well, but that wasn't within their realm of possibility. So Zoho was a good fit for them because a fifth of the cost, of Salesforce. Plus, they needed a lot more than just the CRM. So when they were looking at Salesforce, they're like, all we have is the CRM here. And so, we'd like to bake in some other options, which is what Zoho offers, which is why I like it. So.
Right. Okay. So can you walk me through at a high level without, explaining too many details you're not allowed to say? You walk me through like what you implemented for them.
So they definitely wanted the accounting system. They wanted CRM. They had already been trialing the desk ticket system because they thought they could use that for their technicians. It's got the mobile app, the whole 9 yards, which is a great idea. However, when we got into it, it was just more complicated than they needed to be. So they needed the field service technicians to be able to service the equipment out in the field. They needed to have a place where they could see the account, what equipment they owned, and then they would love to see like the service and maintenance on that equipment. So instead of keeping that, I know some people would have created an entire creator database or whatever it is, use the ticket system, but we couldn't get maintenance history on the ticket system, right? And various other things with that. We couldn't make those nice receipts that we send to the client. So basically we put in, using the CRM, we implemented an entire ticket system inside the CRM that has all the fields that they need, the type of filtration, service needed, the equipment serial number, plus it keeps the maintenance history. So every time the technician closes out a ticket, it keeps the history in there and it auto-generates the next ticket for the maintenance cycle, right? So some clients are on a monthly or a quarterly maintenance cycle. They want that ticket auto-generated. Then when they close out that ticket, they would like for the client to sign off in person, right? And then the client likes to get the nice receipts, not just a handwritten, hey, we were here, but a very nice HTML receipt that shows all the service that was done, parts that were used to do the service, which integrates with the accounting system. So it takes all of that out of inventory as well. So highly integrated with that, things that desk would not do or would not do easily. We didn't have to write an entire creator system. Everything is kept within the CRM and integrates with books. And then, of course, they added things like after they got used to it, they started adding things like social, the sales IQ and things like that. And now they're ramping up for an e-commerce system on the website, which we have integrated with books as well.
Nice. Very cool. it's interesting because yeah, you said you can't do all this in Creator, but you don't necessarily need to, right? CRM is a relational database. You can't build the same stuff in CRM that you would in Creator, right?
Mhm.
And so I see that makes a lot of sense, especially when you're looking at maintenance history or the assets on site, that kind of thing. Death, then yeah, that would be extremely difficult to death, but very straightforward in CRM. Can you walk me through how you implemented this for them? Right. So they had, a bunch of smart sheets, MS Access database, right? We knew, or you knew that there's a ticketing component or ticketing component. Walk through the implementation with the client to deliver this.
So we started off pretty well. We were working with one of the gentlemen, and I only mentioned this because it threw up some barriers for the timeline, though. We started off with one gentleman that was the database admin. We also brought in their IT guy so that we could get some case history because of the Access database. So the first thing we had to do is figure out where is all the data that you need in this database. So we had to figure out how to combine the Access database with the smart sheets to be able to do the data migration, which was absolutely huge. Halfway through that, the gentleman, the database administrator we were working with, got a different job. So we had to start almost over with a new database admin that had almost no experience in there. So it was a fun process to get the data migrated to begin with. But a scoping session, it all starts off with the interrogation is kind of what I call it, because it gets pretty painful sometimes. Where's your data? If you ask these hard questions, they're like, oh, yeah, I don't know where that lives. And then they start realizing, oh, gosh, I don't know where this stuff is. I don't know who owns that. I don't know who has the database administrator login for that. So the interrogation process is prime, because we need to know what reports you want out of this at the end of the day. What is your end result? So we do a very thorough scoping process with it before we even start making one single field. So all of that gets mapped out. It gets designed. We go over this with the client. I think you and I were talking earlier. One of the places that I start that kind of differentiates me, I think, from other consultants that I've talked to is we start with the training. I start with, this is how Zoho sees the world. And I train them on, what is the leads module? What does it do? How does it convert to accounts and contacts? So the first thing they get is training so they can make those decisions. If I ask you a question about, what kind of record types do you want? Unless you know how Zoho sees the world, you don't even, that might as well be Greek to you. So I like to do training first so that they understand kind of how the database works. And then it makes it a little bit easier for them to imagine the process and then answer some of the questions. We build in small stages to make sure everything's going where it's supposed to go. Get sign off from everybody, lots and lots of communication. And one of my absolute favorites, everybody does it differently, but I actually start a project in Zoho Projects. And I set up all the milestones and I start adding task lists and tasks to that. I make it external for the client and I invite the client, not all of their users, but I invite the client, the owner, and their database administrator, their IT guy in as client users so that they have input on the project. They can create additional tasks. I can ask them pointed questions and they can answer the question right on the task itself. They can also upload documents to that task. So it keeps everything organized and in one place. And I found that clients really, really appreciate that rather than the emails going back and forth and back and forth. So
that makes a lot of sense. It's interesting. I do like you do the training first, right? Because then when you go through the design after you call the interrogation, right? It's not like they're saying, well, how will we do this, or does that cover this thing? And then you're training both on the Zoho while trying to go through the design with them, right? Like that's very dense to try and get through. So I think that's a really clever idea of doing the training first. And also, I do like how you call it an interrogation. We've done the same thing. Get on a call, you start asking some questions. Sometimes they're not even hard questions; they're just specific or edge cases, and like it does impact the build you're doing. And the client goes, I've never, that's come up once, and I don't remember what we did at the time, but I do remember it being a mess by the end of this thing. So like, I don't know what we do. It's like, well, you need to make some decisions then, because we're not going to build this without these answers, right?
Right.
So it's always extremely painful going through the interrogation, as you call it.
Well, you got to have that upfront contract there, because if they're expecting the interrogation, and it turns out not to be so bad, but at least they know it's going to be uncomfortable. And I'm not going to gloss over that part.
Yeah. So I can imagine, with this, there's a lot of moving parts, right? So you implemented the system. It includes ticketing, includes history on maintenance or on tickets, for accounts and for assets on site, including billing. What was it like for this client? So once you implemented it, the system, how were you able, like, what was the process you went through to kind of get them from Smartsheets and MS Access to using the new system? And understanding this for their employees, what did you have to do to kind of navigate that?
Coming up with decent timelines, phase one, phase two, phase three, and getting everybody to agree on those timelines. In this particular instance, those timelines did get stretched quite a bit on both sides for various reasons. But trying to stick to that timeline, and it's a lot about the communication and having the corporate sponsor or management or the champion, right, the project champion, having those people internally be able to say, look, somebody's holding the ball here, somebody needs to start moving towards the goal line. What are we going to do with this? So whether it's calling me to say, oh, hey, what's our next step here, or whether I'm reaching out to them to say, I haven't heard from you in a while, what's going on here? Did you finish those things you were working on, right? Just sending the little reminders and keeping that top of mind and just making progress instead of letting it sit. So I know at one point it kind of like got pushed to the bottom of the heap because some other things came up. The pandemic was huge for that. It really cut timelines on that. But it also gave them an opportunity to be able to take a step back on how busy they were. Kind of a good thing for them, believe it or not. They were able to take a step back from how busy they were to actually train on the applications and have a little bit slower pace, so that their technicians, they had technicians that were doing it the old way, and we had two technicians that are like, here's your application, here's your mobile phone, here's your device, this is the way we're going to do this. So they had gone out, and it's just compartmentalizing it and systematizing it to make sure that everything's being tested. And we got people on board. Somebody knows how to use it. You've got the beta testers first, work out the kinks before you get everybody else in there. Setting 20 technicians loose on an untested system is just,
yeah, that's gonna be a nightmare.
Yeah.
So you had an internal champion for this, for the project. How were they testing it first before technicians, or did they actually do the training on the technicians, or did you do the training? With 20 technicians, I can imagine there would be a mountain of tickets that come in. Oh, can we change this? Can we adjust this? It would drive me crazy, right? How was that done in this implementation?
Well, I would love to tell you that I spent 8 months in the Bahamas on different islands. However, pandemic, that just wasn't my life at the time. So I did not actually get to go down to visit, but that was part of it. I was going to go down for a week and do some training, but we ended up just using remote training. And there's a couple of software programs that I use that I can mirror my mobile device on the system. So I can show that on Zoom. And so we did mobile training that way. I logged into, their database. We did it that way. The fun part was when we combined all three islands. We got Barbados ramped up first, but then we had to get the other islands on board as well. So we took St. Lucia, which was next, which was a little bit smaller, and Jamaica. But one of the things that I really, really try to stress is you've got to have internal people that do the training as well. So it's train the trainer. So I take I want to say that either the most knowledgeable or the most tech savvy, or a combination of both, to train them, and then they're going to translate it into what the other technicians need, because they know those technicians, they know how they work on a daily basis, and they know how to how to communicate with them, right? They have a different style of communication than, some consultant that's sitting in an office and saying, click here, click there. They're out in the field. They know the vernacular. So they know how to say whatever the colloquialism is for, finding the unit or doing the repairs or whatever. But it's all about train the trainer. And if you can train them to train their people efficiently, it is going to work so much better. So we do little bits and pieces. I'll do a full-on fire hose session with a couple of the technicians. Then I'll make them train me.
Well, that's smart. Yeah. No, that's really good. We call that the recreation internally. It's like, if I'm going to explain something to you, I need you to then explain it back. One, I want to make sure I didn't, screw the poop. Yep. But I also need to make sure that you understood what I'm saying. And so it's kind of a, makes us both responsible here, right? That's really clever.
Next, I sit in on a training or two with them as they're training everybody else, and then I let them loose.
Nice. Train the trainer, have them train you to verify, then you're there to make sure they're training properly, and then you're good to go.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, here's the most important question. How do the employees, like the technicians, how do they feel about the new tools?
You are the most hated person on the planet when you are doing the implementation. You just got to deal with that. However, they do like it now. It is a lot better. They get a lot more done more efficiently, and there's less frustration because it's more organized. We were having things that tickets were being forgotten. People are on maintenance contract and they're paying monthly maintenance or quarterly maintenance. And the tickets weren't automatically generated, so they forgot about them. So there were some clients that hadn't been seen in a year, but they'd been paying for maintenance. So it was happy all the way around. The technicians were happier because the clients were happier. And once we took away all the writing, because some of the things that I did is they write the same things over and over again. I looked at this, I checked the station, I checked the oil, I checked the level, and they were just writing the same things over and over again. One of the technicians said, I had even recommended to them that we order the service tickets. Some of them actually have this 2 paragraphs already printed on them, so we can switch them out. Like, it's kind of brilliant. But what we did is we built that stuff in. So they select an option and it automatically puts that, text in there. So they select the paragraphs that they want, automatically puts it in there. And when the technicians saw that, and you have the in-person signing and they click a button and then the receipt goes to the client immediately, they were blown away with that. They were bowled over, and they really, really like it now. And they laugh and they joke. They're like, I'm not sure how we did this before, but and it's much easier for them to train the new technicians coming in as well, because they're the ones getting out of school and everything. So they are used to having the technology. And when you have somebody that's coming out of school right now and you're sitting them down with handwritten receipts, they look at you and go, yeah,
what's
maybe.
This?
I know, yeah. Right? Cursive, what's that, right? So it's much easier for them to train incoming technicians and onboarding other employees as well.
Right. Yeah. I can imagine, a new employee hasn't written anything in years since they've been in school, right? And then suddenly, they have to have neat handwriting. Like, yeah, it's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Yeah. So
cool.
I really like this particular implementation because we started off with CRM and moving them over from QuickBooks to Books, which wasn't too bad because we decided on what we were going to convert over. So we had a cutoff date. And it was, yep, you're going to be using this from here, and then we're going to pick up and start using this, and that kind of thing. So it was a lot easier than some migrations that you would have. This one is a little different, but they've grown into. We're now implementing full on inventory for them. So before it was just books and taking out of the items in books or whatever, but now we're implementing full-blown inventory subscriptions so that they have the monthly, rentals in there. They've embraced people. I was surprised. One of the ladies called me and she's like, so tell me what you know about Zoho People. And I'm like, let's see. So they implemented that. They use the, holiday hours and timesheets, and they have embraced Zoho all the way around. The only part of Zoho they don't use is the actual mail system because they're still on Office 365, which I'm all good with. But I think it's interesting to find a company. The IT guy was, no, we'll never go, we'll never leave. And then all of a sudden, the only thing we are using, he's just like Office 365 is the only thing that's left there. And everything else is, just well-oiled machine and working well. Their internal people are outstanding at what they do. They've got some really sharp people on board.
Nice. Yeah, I've learned the same things. I'm never going to try and convince someone to change their email client, right? Once they have their email workflow, like you're not going to change it. Switching someone from Outlook to Gmail or Gmail to Zoho Mail, I don't see it as possible. But if they've adopted the rest of Zoho, then great.
Yeah. So they're good.
Cool. Danielle, thanks for being on the show. If for the listeners at home, if you want to get a hold of Danielle, you can go to her website. It's KIconsultants.com.
KICRM.com.
I was wrong. KICRM. I'm gonna clip that bit out too.
Well, Key Consultants works as well because I set that up as a forwarder. So.
Okay, great. Or you can Google Key Consultants. If you're going to be at in Zoho Inspire in Austin, be sure to check out Danielle's speech. Again, thank you for being on the podcast today.